So for me, one method that I do to figure out the realities of complex places is to drive around, walk around, talk to people, and also look at the walls and read the writings on the wall. I'm sure by this time we are familiar with that concept because I do that series. It's an occasional series. Usually I do it during elections, but also some other special occasions. Like this time, and this was 10 years ago, I spent a few days in Pakistan where I had gone for the Lahore Literary Festival. And after that, I wrote writings on the wall from Pakistan, which basically got into the question of what is a national security state and why it's a national security state, and why the fact that Pakistan is a national security state is written in clearest terms where but in the writings on its walls. So that is the one I'm going to share with you today. I think that will give us all a much better understanding of some realities of Pakistani society, governance, power structure, polity, and the complex nature of its nationalism. So this begins with the barbed wire fence, which I thought is the most important writing on the wall in Pakistan. We begin by acknowledging that the barbed wire fence is the starkest new writing on the Pakistani wall. And the tragedy is you have to know neither English nor even Urdu to read it. I don't know any Urdu. Now you can travel around the world and find the first line of this sign at almost every immigration window in the world. Probably even Pyongyang in North Korea, with the possible exception of America, since immigration there doesn't seem to respect anybody and suspect all. You can see it in their eyes. That's the American immigration agents. In their eyes, their body language. But even they do not say in bold signs for you to read. For that candor, come to Pakistan. As you walk, wheeling your bag from the ceremonial Indian gate at Baga checkpoint and into the Pakistani Immigration and Customs Office to complete arrival formalities, the sign looks down at you as the immigration cop squints at your face and the picture on your passport to make sure you are the same guy. To be fair, the staff are friendly, relaxed, totally non-threatening, and even willing to exchange banter with India. The Amritsar dry fruit trader ahead of me in the line makes the usual polite Punjabi conversation. We are the same people. If only the Angrez had not divided us, we'd be a global power. Oi chhado ji, vade veer. Oi, forget it, older brother. Even if we were together, asan lad ke syapa pauna si. Even if we were together, we would have fought amongst ourselves and made a real mess. Actually, syapa pauna si is literally translated as we would have caused a mass public mourning. This was said by the immigration officer stamping our passports. And then he went on to say, just as well that they divided us, the British divided us, the white man knows us inside out. Gore bande nu pata hai saadi asliyat, he said. His colleagues laughed the Punjabi laughter, as does the nervous trader. You can now see he is right. We are all one people. It was only on the way back from Lahore later in the week that the significance sank in of that first writing on the wall that you see entering Pakistan. And here is what I said, you will not even find in Pyongyang. And the writing is, we respect all, we suspect all, until proven okay. Now, never in my life, traveling around the most troubled parts of the world, war-torn Afghanistan and Iraq in the early 90s to the unraveling Soviet Union, all as a reporter for India Today magazine, countries and systems which required you to get even an exit visa stamped on your passport to be able to return home, and thereby suspected all on the way in and on the way out. Even there, I had never seen a declaration of intent as rudely candid as this one, right on top of the immigration window. I asked the immigration staff if this isn't odd. The innocent answer was, "Aap kya sochte hain, sir? Some people tell us it is not good. But what's wrong with being truthful? Sachai bolne mein kya burai hai?" Good point. I laughed too and asked if I could take a picture of the sign as a souvenir, and was told by an amused gaggle, okay, but only the sign, not our faces. So I lifted my phone, and as I was walking out after taking the picture, a more important looking dude in shades and a mustache asked me to step aside. He took my phone, deleted the picture of that sign, went over the archive on my phone and my iPad thoroughly, asked me to explain each photo. It was all polite and clinical. He took screenshots of my passport, my ID card, and then stopped finally with the video clip I had just recorded a couple of months earlier at a Kejriwal rally in Delhi elections. That was the 2015 Delhi election. His suspicion over, he now played the clip and asked me to explain the Kejriwal phenomenon and then says, ये वही बंदा है ना जिसने मोदी को शिकस्त दी है. He's the same guy who's defeated Modi. I said yes. And then he let me go with a smile, saying with genuine warmth, if I may be honest, don't mind if you look overly suspicious. Ultimately, it is for your hifazat, आपके हिफाजत के लिए और हमारी कौम की. It is for your safety and our nation's. On this point, I said, welcome to Pakistan, a full-fledged national security state. And see you soon again, because it is friendly and suspicious, distant but curious, paranoid yet cocky, all at the same time. And you see that not merely in the writings on the wall at the Baga Immigration Office, which I just mentioned, and there is much other evidence as you keep looking, even if you can't read a letter of Urdu. And remember, as our experience of trawling the countryside in the subcontinent has shown, writings on the wall don't lie. Both India and Pakistan indulge in an exercise of awful, fake and filmy hyper-patriotism on their respective sides every evening as their national flags are lowered. Tourists make noisy chorus on either side, running up to the dividing line with national flags, and hand-picked 6-foot-plus Jawans stomp on the ground in exaggerated gestures on both sides, exchange threatening glares, and of course, make ridiculous theatre. At the same time, nobody in the 1,000-strong crowds sees the ridiculous side of the daily mime. Both sides play loud patriotic songs, which on the Indian side includes Alisha Chenai's Made in India, but only on the Pakistani side. Only on the Pakistani side, on the wall enclosing the sprawling checkpoint area, you see colored portraits of Pakistan's heroes of its wars with India, the name of each suffixed with Shaheed, as Pakistan does with all its posthumous topmost gallantry award winners, Nishan-e-Haider, which is the equivalent of our Paramveer Chakra. Each of these wars similarly produced heroes on the Indian side as well, and equally left proud and grieving families. We are at fault being so forgetful about them in India, but Pakistanis immortalize them on the walls, in school textbooks and on road signs. Most big cities have major roads or squares named after the same heroes. In Lahore, you can't miss the Aziz Bhatti Road, Nishan-e-Haider. Barki village, Lahore sector. We will come back to him and his equally famous kinsman in a couple of minutes. Even more striking is M.M. Alam Road in Lahore. Alam, the mythologized saber jet pilot who claimed to have shot down 11 Indian fighter aircraft in 1965, the first fighter race claim since World War II, fully disputed by the IAF and Indian war historians. He was from East Pakistan. He was from East Pakistan and became a greater hero because he stayed back in Pakistan even after 1971. In fact, I spotted him on one of my reporting visits in the late 1980s in Karachi, leading a pro-Mujahideen procession, sporting a long mullah beard and carrying a Kalashnikov. For years after 1965, in his years of service, he flew his saber jet with 11 miniature tricolors painted on its left, each representing an IAF jet he claimed to have shot down. That same saber jet now adorns the main square of M.M. Alam Road in Lahore, although a Google search now would throw up entries mostly about premium real estate along this road. All this reverence in a country, mind you, whose army never won a war. I should actually say that with care. Professor Stephen Cohen's book, The Pakistan Army, was banned by Ziaul Haq, who otherwise adored him, even calling Professor Sahib home for dinner every time he was in Pakistan. Cohen said he asked Zia to explain the contradiction, that on the one hand, he lionized him, on the other, he had banned his book. Zia explained to him that he objected to a line in his book that said something like, Pakistan's was the finest army in the world that had never won a war. The Pakistanis, Zia explained, believe that they won 1965. So be it. The walls tell you better than any scholar. That's the reason these mega portraits of war heroes of 1965, 1971 tell you the story of the Pakistani mindset and also add up to the evidence of Pakistan being a national security state. The walls tell you better than any scholarly PhDs or journalistic tomes that the armed forces have a very special place in Pakistani hearts and minds, unmatched by any other country in the world. And mind you, everybody loves their soldiers, as we do in India, which is the point where we return to late Major Aziz Bhatti. Or let's stick to the full usage now, Major Raja Aziz Bhatti Shaheed. He died fighting for the Pakistani village of Burki after the Indian advance across Wagah was stopped in 1965. Burki, however, fell to the Indian forces. He died defending it. I walked to old Lahore's Urdu Bazaar, filled with textbook shops, just like Delhi's Nai Sadak Chawri Bazaar area, and almost every year's textbook from class 3 onwards has a chapter on Bhatti, as on some other wars and their heroes as well. And remember, I confine myself to the relatively gentler English books, being illiterate in Urdu. There are myths about Bhatti, that his ruh or spirit still visits the village at night. One area where the Pakistanis really outdo us greatly is the colorful imagination of their gallantry award citations. 3 generations have been made to believe and memorize every one of these in an institutionalized militarization of the Pakistani mind through textbooks, folklore, and indeed the inevitable writings on the wall, which we were reading on this trip. You might think I'm overstating the point, and in any case, this was from half a century ago, this war. So what's the relevance today? Particularly as you did not bother going on and on about it in scores of your previous reporting visits to Pakistan. The relevance is understood when you leapfrog from 1965 to the next war in 1971 and note the stories of Pakistan's greatest heroes from it. Major Shabir Sharif Shaheed, right? Posthumous again, in Fazilka sector, and their highest decorated soldier ever with a posthumous Nishane-e-Haidar, which is their equivalent of the Paramveer Chakra, with a posthumous Nishane-e-Haidar on top of an earlier Sitara-e-Jurat equal to our Veer Chakra in the same 13-day war. So first he gets his Sitara-e-Jurat, just a couple of days later he gets Nishane-e-Haidar. Mythology about him, enshrined in official history of Pakistan, has it that he accepted a challenge for a personal duel with an Indian major, Major Narayan Singh, and won, of course, to be killed later by India's much larger numbers. Now, let me tell you the connection that any Pakistani interlocutor is quick to underline. Shabir Sharif was the older brother of General Rahil Sharif, who was then the Chief of Army Staff in Pakistan in 2014-15. And Bhatti, Major Aziz Bhatti Shaheed, Major Raja Aziz Bhatti Shaheed was their uncle or their mama. So while every army chief in Punjab has a larger than life image and is admired, General Rahil was super special. Who can ever question him over anything when he has these 2 most celebrated martyrs in his family history? That's how a prominent politician and former minister put it to me over a generous evening of black labor and biryani in Lahore. And then the ex-minister added, he's also our best-looking chief ever. Sure enough, most people you speak to, including top politicians, don't bother mentioning his name or rank. The chief in Pakistan is quite simply called the big man or the top man. It doesn't matter who the chief is. Asim Munir will have the same description today. You shouldn't call anything impossible. So let's only say that a physical military takeover of power in Pakistan is very, very unlikely now. But it isn't needed anymore as the military control of the Pakistani mind is so complete. Note the way the National Assembly in Pakistan passes laws setting up military courts for terrorists with such near unanimous alacrity, and then how pending executions resumed then at a pace at the time of writing of this piece that Pakistan was on top of the world for the year leading the usual suspect Saudi Arabia 53:48 for executions. If any doubts remained, these were buried after the killings of army officers' children in Peshawar in the Pakistani Army School. That was Pakistan's 26/11 and 9/11 rolled into one. It shifted the mood completely. The army was now the only institution loved and respected and soldiers adored as heroes for fighting to preserve Pakistan. The only difference being that this time they were fighting against their own. These were the snakes they reared in their backyard. Track the Pakistani discussion groups on internet, even the Twitter feed of its most eminent liberal commentators, and you will only see awe and gratitude for the sacrifice of our soldiers that they were making in the war against traitors for their own, as they are now on their western frontier. And it's a real war with real casualties. More than 900 soldiers killed in the last 2.5 years in along Pakistan's western frontiers. And portraits of new posthumous heroes, a Major Tufail now, Major Hamza, keep coming up, rifles in hand, ammunition belts around the torso. You also find old childhood photos posted by schoolmates. There is also widespread repudiation of Rahil's predecessor, Ashfaq Parvez Kayani, who subsequently became rumored to have cut private protection deals with the bad guys. Even the spokesman of the armed forces, the ISPR chief, often has had Twitter handles that cheekily say that it does not necessarily reflect the views of the organization, but still has nearly 1 million followers. That doesn't happen in normal states. It has to happen in a national security state. A reference to the Indian version of these war histories is relevant, not so much for fairness or to establish equivalence, but to underline how this total military takeover of the Pakistani mind, this unquestioning acknowledgement of the army as the sole savior, has been reinforced over the decades. Against each of these Pakistani heroes was inevitably an Indian, also with a high decoration and a stirring citation. Facing Aziz Bhatti was Major Asharam Tyagi from Meerut. Asharam Tyagi got Mahavir Chakra, posthumous. He died in the Battle of Dograi, another village, but Barki was taken by them. And Shabir Sharif in 1961, that is Aziz Bhatti's nephew, he was up against Major Narayan Singh, who was decorated with Veer Chakra posthumously. Barki fell into Indian hands after a night of amazing valor and sacrifice on both sides in September 1965, and Pakistani advance in Fazilka stopped in 1971, exactly where Sharif and Singh sacrificed their lives. But how many Indians remember those names, mark roads, squares, academies after them, or write textbooks celebrating their heroism? We in fact go to the other awful extreme, the Mazar of Havaldar Abdul Hamid in Khemkaran, PVC posthumous 1965, and the memorial to Major Shaitan Singh of Chushul, PVC posthumous 1962, are routinely devoured by weeds. Sometimes Indian education ministers have talked about taking a leaf out of Pakistani school textbooks and putting similar chapters in our own textbooks. We also have to keep in mind that it is this indoctrination of young minds that has established Pakistan as the world's most formidable national security state, suspicious, insecure, prickly, defensive, constantly looking at its front yard and backyard and sideways across its shoulders, and to add it all up, self-destructive, because it's militarized up there in the head. So what exactly is a national security state? Listen to General retired Jahangir Karamat, one of the finest professional soldiers who lead the Pakistani Army, 1996 to 1998. At a seminar at the Institute of Regional Studies in Islamabad in 2012, he defined it as a state where security gets an inordinately high share of the national budget and where strategic concerns override all others, from the economy to society to education. He said initially India was also headed in that direction, but has now done a course correction. Sure enough, India's defense budget has been consistently below 2% of the GDP and is declining even as the GDP is rising. Pakistan's is 3.5% and rising in a stalling GDP. But it is explained somewhat more strikingly by my friend of 4 decades, former Pakistani ambassador, minister, commentator, and now its most eminent political exile, Hussain Haqqani, who said, and I quote, "A good, strong army is needed by every nation, including Pakistan. But look at it like this. If you go to the gym and lift weights with only one arm all the time, you will have one really strong set of biceps, while the rest of the body would wither," which is precisely what happens to a national security state like Pakistan. You hear this description all the time and with disapproval, as in the panels of the Lahore Literary Festival that year, and at whose invitation and hospitality I visited Pakistan then. Another brilliant Pakistani commentator and institution builder, Najm Sethi, and former Foreign Minister Khurshid Kasuri, He wrote a very nice book, very interesting book, also an intriguing book on India-Pakistan relations. With them, I had the honor of sharing a plenary in front of a full Alhambra auditorium in Lahore. Both underlined the same problem, but forget challenging it. Nobody can even debate the notion outside of the charmed, tiny and incestuous English-speaking liberal and very brave intellectual circle. Or, as an old politician friend in Lahore tells me, in the two passport circuit, alluding to the Pakistani law allowing dual nationality where elites keep a home in each, usually Lahore and Karachi, and then London or New York, in addition Dubai as well. For that you don't need citizenship, but Pakistanis can have two passports. Elite Pakistanis then, because they can afford it, have two passports, so they have one life overseas as well. As elites send their children overseas to study, for the natives, the fastest growing knowledge business is religion or Islam. Check the backs of auto rickshaws. So many display invitations to Dini or religious congregations and marches. It is remarkable though, how much free speech and criticism even this security establishment allows the mostly Western educated intellectual class and English media. Because there is one unwritten condition, it must remain confined to English, which is a marginalized discourse in Pakistan. Follow some of Pakistan's finest, most courageous minds, many of them young women in the new media. They have enormously more spunk than us in India, but most of it in English. Urdu is a different matter altogether. English publication circulation is minuscule compared to Urdu, and there isn't even one news channel in English, though they have in Mubashir Lukman someone who can by himself outshout all our English primetime warriors, including the champion of champions. My friends tell me the story of Raza Rumi. Check out his Twitter handle in his writings. Very fine writer, a fine, brave, liberal commentator and patriot. He was ignored as long as he confined himself to English. Then one day he succumbed to the temptation of TV, obviously in Urdu, and continued speaking the same honest truth. His car was attacked, his driver died, he escaped with a bullet and became an exile in Washington. Do Google his writings, I strongly recommend that to you. Haqqani and other Pakistani liberals highlight the downside of this imbalance. In a country of nearly 25 crore people now, where the median age is 23, much younger than India's about 29, nearly 46% young people do not go to school. They walk the streets, jobless, aimless, lacking in knowledge of the world and self-esteem, totally alienated with the elites who are now physically quarantined from them behind their barbed wires. They are easy victims for the Maulvi, Madarsa, Kalashnikovs, Lashkars and Jihad. It is this wasted generation that India has been fighting from Kashmir to Parliament in 2001 and to Mumbai 2611. And this is precisely what slaughtered Pakistani army's own children in Peshawar in that school and then drew this brutal fight back with artillery, Huey Cobra helicopter gunships, fighter jets, and the Pakistani nation cheered that war on its own people. I cannot say for sure, but can speculate with some authority on why the armed forces of Pakistan held a parade, a formidable show of power on Pakistan Day in 2014 March after a 7-year break in tradition. My guess, it was to say, don't worry, we are back. We call the shots and we are the only ones you can trust. More than 4 decades ago, when Ziaul Haq's martial law was at the peak of its glory, Lahore's beautiful liberal landmark Alhambra Center Auditorium, that's where our panel on the literary festival was, that witnessed a spontaneous resurgence of democratic impulse. At a festival dedicated to Faiz Ahmad Faiz, Iqbal Bano sang his Hum Dekhenge, an invocation to popular rebellion against dictatorships. With each line, the crowd realized what was going on. Sab takht giraye jayenge, sab taaj uchhale jayenge, all thrones will be toppled, crowns will be tossed, और राज करेगी खलके खुदा जो मैं भी हूँ और तुम भी हो, and God's people will rule, which is you and I. हम देखेंगे, we shall see. A clap built up, a cheer, and then finding safety in numbers, everybody clapped and sang. It was a cathartic moment. The civil society had thrown its first challenge at Zia. The literary festival which I attended was held in the same complex, and the tone was just as liberal, honest, even secular. More than 70,000 people attended over 3 days, and there were lines at the entrance through each day. The difference this time was the security and a strong barbed wire concertina fence around the complex. At the entrance, police crouched in position behind barricades, fingers on the trigger. A church had been bombed in Lahore a few days earlier, nearly leading to the cancellation of the festival. But now Shehbaz Sharif's Punjab government was determined to protect it. The barbed concertina wire is now ubiquitous, circling schools, colleges, government offices, army installations, homes of prominent people, which is the reason we said Pakistan's intellectual elites now live in quarantine. The barbed wire fence is the starkest new writing on the Pakistani wall. And the tragedy is that you have to know neither English nor Urdu or any language to read it and understand the meaning of a national security state which suspects all and most of all its own. And this cycle keeps coming and going. Sometimes army is in very good order, which is most of the times. Sometimes it also falls in disrepute and bad order, as it did in 2007 when Musharraf tried to subvert his own judiciary. And as is also the case now in Pakistan, because the street right now is not with Pakistani. So this is an ongoing, inevitable cycle in a national security state.